What's that? You want more stories about terrifying Christmas folklore monsters? Well, take a break from dashing through the snow and roasting chestnuts over an open fire and pull up a chair, because that's all boring stuff anyways. Unless, of course, you're dashing through the snow to escape a monster delivering punishment, or roasting chestnuts as a part of a ritual to keep the dark spirits at bay. If you haven't already checked out the first 5, be sure to do so. The link is in the top right corner, right? Meow. Dang Yule Cat. Anyways, here are 5 more terrifying Christmas folklore monsters from around the world. Europe has had an eventful history, loaded with nightmare fuel, and centuries to come up with multiple reasons for children to behave during the holiday season. We would be remiss if we didn't mention the most widely known creature, considered to be the dark to Santa's light. A dark, hairy, bipedal creature with goat hooves and demon horns, Krampus is often seen with bells, chains, and twigs to smack misbehaving children with, as well as baskets to carry them off in. Variations of Krampus are spread across a large swath of Europe, including Austria, Hungary, and the Czech Republic. Many places feature events like parades, where dozens, if not more people, will dress up as the half-goat, half-demon and run through the streets. Naturally, its humble beginnings lie in pagan folklore, as the beast who would appear during the winter solstice. To earlier cultures, longer nights and more time spent in the darkness meant that evil spirits and creatures had more of an opportunity to gather and unleash their chaos. While we spent childhood being threatened with coal in our stockings if we didn't behave, other children grew up believing that they'd be hit with a stick and taken away under the cover of darkness. Once Christianity took root in these regions, Krampus became the dark half of a pairing with St. Nicholas. The two are said to arrive in the late hours of December 5th, referred to as Krampusnacht or Krampus night. The two of them then would travel from house to house, with old St. Nick leaving gifts for children who behaved, and Krampus dishing out punishment to those who hadn't. December 6th became St. Nicholas Day, when the good children would wake up to gifts. The bad children would have injuries to take care of, assuming that they hadn't been eaten or carried off to hell. It's no secret that he's since made his way to America, especially Hollywood. The popular horror comedy with the same name was released in 2015, featuring underrated scream queen Toni Collette and comedy heavyweights Adam Scott and David Koechner. It's a riot, with ridiculous Christmas-themed critters on the attack, but carries heavier messages, like being careful for what you wish for and appreciating what you've got, instead of caving into mindless commercialism. Spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the movie, it ends with a fascinating concept. Every child and family being punished by Krampus is trapped forever within a snow globe, containing their own personal hell. And to say he has a large collection of snow globes would be an understatement. While some may confuse Krampus with the next on our list, since they come from the same region, Belsnickel is its own entity. He made his trip to the United States months earlier, having been carried over as a tradition by German immigrants who heavily settled in areas of Pennsylvania. Belsnickel isn't so much as a creature as he is a very cranky, unbathed, early version of Santa. Tales say his face is covered in charcoal dust, and his clothing is a bizarre amalgamation of shredded fabrics, warm but equally dirty hats and cloaks, since layering is key when dealing with winter cold, and sometimes even bits and pieces of leaves from the woods. He's frequently depicted with deer antlers as part of his outfit as well. His approach is similar to Santa's naughty and nice list, but happens to be much more direct. He doesn't have any list that he checks twice, but he goes straight to the source. The stick he carries in his hand is used to hit the windows of children's bedrooms, and not so the child can let him in, but as a warning that he's about to charge in like the Kool-Aid Man and interrogate the hell out of them. Children are then put to the test. He'll ask all kinds of questions to challenge them, asking if they've been well behaved, and sometimes making them recite Bible verses. The kids might think they've convinced them and that they are deserving once he tosses goodies from his pocket onto the floor, but they're not in the clear yet. It's just another test. If they happen to go for these candies and cakes too quickly, then they'll still catch a few swats from his stick. They'll have to show that they're not greedy and will truly behave. Our next menace seems to be the French combination of Krampus and Belsnickel. The threat of a visit from Pere Fouettard, which translates to Father Whipper, would be an excellent incentive to behave. His appearance resembles Belsnickel, but with Krampus accessories. He's dirty and scraggly in appearance, decked out in furs, and carries a whip. There's no sneaking about for Father Whipper though, as he carries bells and chains that make quite the racket. The character also comes from one crazy origin story, slightly reminiscent of Hansel and Gretel, but more unhinged. 3 children, young brothers, are lost in the woods when they happen upon a butcher out hunting. Unfortunately for them, the butcher hasn't had any luck finding wildlife today and is a rather nefarious fellow. He decides the 3 boys will be an appropriate replacement for a deer that he's been unable to catch, kills them, and takes them back to his shop to sell. By a stroke of some incredible luck, and I mean incredible, call it a Christmas miracle, St. Nicholas happens to stroll into that specific butcher shop on that specific day and realize what kind of meat the butcher is feeding him. How St. Nicholas knows what the taste of human flesh is a story for another time. He then collects all the pieces of the children, reassembles them, and brings them back to life. They return to their parents, hopefully with no memory of what's happened to them. In a fascinating but unexplained twist of fate, the butcher accepts responsibility for his actions and begins a new life as a changed man. He becomes a close friend with St. Nicholas and travels with him, handing out punishment to naughty children when St. Nicholas rewards those who have behaved. Naturally, St. Nick doesn't allow murder or cannibalism, so even children who have misbehaved should be grateful that they cross paths with Father Whipper after his makeover. We mentioned the Icelandic Yule Cat in our first video, and now we'll dive into the story behind the head of its household, Gryla. She's a gigantic troll with a hideous appearance, and is one of the oldest, most terrifying creatures in Icelandic lore. Some stories claim she has 15 tails, while others say she's got as many as 40. She's often shown hunched over, with a witchy, hooked nose. References to her can be traced back to at least the early 14th century, and she's given far more power than most Christmas creepers. It was believed that Gryla could control some of the natural elements of the island, making her a true force to be reckoned with. She has 13 sons, the Yule lads, who used to be almost as frightening as she is. As Santa Claus grew in popularity, and depictions of him as a jolly man in a red suit became more common, attempts were made to quote-unquote soften the appearance of the lads and make their activities a bit less terrifying. Their ragged, dark clothing and haggard visages evolved to more closely resemble Santa, and rather than storming her home to steal things and to cause trouble, they each started to leave gifts. Despite all the trouble the lads used to cause, they were never quite as dangerous as their mother. She keeps her own notes, similar to Santa's naughty list, throughout the year. Once the winter darkness has fallen across the island, she leaves her mountain home to venture into town. Misbehaving children, beware. She doesn't leave coal in your stocking. Gryla carries a large sack with her, and those who've made her list end up in the sack. Once she's collected all the children who's misbehaved, she returns to her cave, where it's said that she boils them and makes them into a stew. There is no mercy or kindness shown by the matriarch of the Icelandic troll family, and unlike a lot of lore, she's remained free of Christian influence. She is so terrifying that the Icelandic government actually outlawed using being eaten by her as a threat back in the 1800s. Children are still warned about the danger Gryla poses today, but to a much lesser extent. How often have you heard stories of creatures so fierce that the government feels the need to step in? Last, but certainly not least on our list, is the Scandinavian version of Frau Perchta, the witch, Lussi. She's also referred to as a demon or a goddess, covering the full spectrum of possibilities. She discriminates far less than other entities we featured, in that she'll also punish adults for laziness and misbehaving. The night of December 12th, headed into the early morning of December 13th, is called Lussi Lagnat. In older variations of the calendar, it was the winter solstice and the longest night of the year. The long night provided additional time for forces of darkness to explore the surface, and it was recommended that everyone stay inside where it was safe. If you happened to venture outside, the odds were high that you would encounter Lussi and the band of misfits she led across the land. She also has a few cards up her sleeve that make her more dangerous than the others. Like Frau Perchta, Lussi goes from house to house, ensuring that housework has been completed. Should she find a house in any condition that doesn't meet her standards, she flies down the chimney to abduct all guilty parties in the household. She doesn't just hold children accountable, parents are also at risk. While it's recommended that you stay indoors, and that children who knew they had been bad should hide, Lussi has a special ability that prevents even sleep from guaranteeing your safety. It's possible that your spirit could be pulled from your body while you slept, forcing it along for the ride with her and the crew of creatures who follow her. This particular rumor led to a tradition of staying awake all night to protect your home and ensure your spirit remains where it belongs. While it's easy to imagine this night being filled with terror in the past, nowadays, it's used as an excuse to party hardy until the sun rises. If you're feeling brave, leave your chores unfinished before the party starts. If you're lucky, Lussi won't interrupt the festivities. But if not, you can't say we didn't warn you.